establish the clerk and the
And the
secretary.
treasurer. That's right. We need a vice chair. Is there a motion to elect a vice chair?
I make a motion we appoint Jennifer, or I make a nomination that Jennifer Moore is the vice chair.
Nomination on the floor for Ms. Moore as vice chair. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ms. Moore, now you are vice chair of the Broadband Authority. We need a motion for secretary.
I make a motion that we nominate Dean Rogers for secretary.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Pugh to nominate Dean Rogers as secretary. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Mr. Rogers, congratulations. Now a motion to elect the treasurer of the Broadband Authority, which has been in the past,
Stacy Wilkes.
Ms.
Madam
Wilkes.
Chair, I make a motion that we nominate Ms. Wilkes as continuing treasurer.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Ayers to nominate Ms. Wilkes. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Ms. Wilkes is now treasurer. Congratulations, Ms. Wilkes. Now we need an approval of the agenda.
Madam Chair, I'd like to propose an addition to the agenda under new business, item C, CARES Act projects.
CARES Act projects.
That's all I have.
All right, there's been an addition to the agenda. Is there a motion to approve?
So move, Madam Chair, with noted change.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Ayers. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The agenda with the addition is now approved, and we will move on to citizen comment. Is there anyone here wishing to speak? Seeing and hearing none, we will now close citizen comment and move on to approval of the minutes from June 18th, 2019. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Pugh. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no.
Abstain.
Thank you for pointing that out, Mr. Martin. The record show that Mr. Martin will abstain from the vote. The minutes from June 18th, 2019 are approved. We will now hear a presentation from Lit Communities. They are on our speaker phone here. Lit
Madam Chair?
Communities, can you unmute your phone, please? Mr. Rogers.
I'd like to ask Mr. Prophet to introduce them and explain the process and how we hired them, and then
Mr. Prophet, come forward. Lit Communities, are you on?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, well, starting just briefly, I'll go through the process. In May, the school system had hired Lit Communities to, as a consultant, research ways that they could attempt to have all of the students connected by internet. Generally speaking, as time unfolded into June, the county became aware that it could also participate in this endeavor. And we talked to the school administration, determined it would be more efficient if we both jointly utilize the services of the consultant. We went through the proper procurement process, interviewed people, both the schools and county administration. We selected Lit as our consultant for both the county and school system. The previous contract the schools had with Lit was terminated, and we now have a joint contract with Lit Communities. And they are commencing to work on the contract for us, and they'll speak to you about that today.
Thank you, Mr. Prophet. We appreciate your work on that. All right, Lit Communities, can you identify yourselves and introduce who's going to be on the call, please?
Sure. My name is Rene Gonzalez. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer with Lit Communities, and today I'm joined by Mr. Brian Snyder, our Chief Executive Officer, Ms. Jessica Fowler, our Chief Client Officer, Don White, our consultant with Lidelli, and Mr. Aaron Jackson with Jackson Solution Services.
Thank you.
And Mr. Sanford, Sanford, what's your last name? Jewett. There you go. Sorry about that. So problem.
Thank you, we appreciate your time today.
So was there anything that you all wanted to present here today, or are you just here to assist us as we go through our options?
We actually provided a memo earlier this morning to the county. Did you guys receive that?
We did, and that was presented to the Board of Supervisors before this meeting by email, and they have a hard copy in front of them. I don't know that they've had an opportunity to read it because they've been in meetings all day. I can, basically what we asked lit communities to do was to look at the proposals that we had received from SCS Broadband and from Central Virginia Electric Cooperative in terms of VATI grant projects, and also how we might spend our CARES Act money before it runs out at the end of the year. Just to summarize for the board, Lit Communities is performing 4 basic functions for us. First of all, they're going to advise us on how to spend the CARES Act money. They're going to assist us with regard to seeking VATI grants, so with the applications and identifying the projects. 3, they're going to produce for us a build-out plan for the entire county, and that won't be deliverable until the fall. And then 4, we've sort of retained their services to be available to assist us with other grants as those grant opportunities pop up. And so what we wanted to do today was go through those VATI grant application projects and CARES Act projects and have Lit Communities online here to answer your questions as they might pop up. Renee, could you summarize in just a few sentences the bottom line conclusion of the memo that you sent today when you looked at the projects on how we ought to proceed?
How you doing, guys? Mr. Rogers, thank you so much. I would actually want to invite Mr. White, Don White, our consultant with Fidelity, to provide a high-level overview of the review that was conducted on behalf of the SCS broadband application before the county. So Don, if you could just share a little bit about how that analysis kind of started.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. Hi, everybody. I'm Don White. I'm with Fidelity. We were asked to look at 4 sites that were originally recommended Mr. Rogers and to sorry, Jeremy, I forgot the last name. Right, and so those 4 sites were the 4 sites that I looked at and reviewed based on the information that was provided. And due to the time, restraints we had, Mr. Stewart from SCS Broadband was unable to get me all the information we had requested. So we proceeded with looking at these sites based on the information that I had, and along with some other discussions I had with Mr. Stewart to get some additional information. As mentioned in my report, the 4 sites do provide the proposed coverage as Mr. Stewart had described in his original memo. Due to the information that I did not receive in time, there is no way for me to evaluate really how these 4 sites add to the SCS broadband network. All I can describe to you is the benefit of them, which is they provide broadband coverage within areas of the county as that had been described. My understanding is that subsequent to the review of the 4 sites I've done, Mr. Stewart's done some additional engineering analysis and modified the proposal a bit. So what you're reading in the memo may not be current with what is being proposed. There is some overlap there. But for us to evaluate those two proposals that, as I've seen them today, would require some additional work. There's new sites being proposed and some additional changes being made.
And if I could jump in here, Madam Chair, Lit Communities and Vitality were just hired last week. And so we've been working very quickly to compile information and get it to them, and we're moving as quickly as we can because the time is quickly passing by for us to make these decisions and get construction underway if that's what you want to do.
Can I ask a
So,
question? I mean, data is you're only as good as the first data that comes on board. So Lit Community says that we gave them the 4 sites.
no, we facilitated that. They were proposed by SCS Broadband. SCS Broadband, as you know, is our current provider, and in a partnership with the county. They know where our towers are, where they're needed, where the customers are, and where the customer requests are that they're currently unable to serve. And so, based upon that, they looked at 12 sites. I sent you that report, and they are. We asked them to narrow that down to a number that could actually be constructed before the end of the year. They reduced that down to 4. That was sent to Lit, and it's just a matter of getting the information to 2 completely different companies in sync with regard to what they know.
All right, I got it. Thank you.
All right, I have a question regarding, I've looked at the proposal somewhat, but one of the things that I thought to myself is Comcast provides internet to a lot of people in the county. And there's, typically they end the line and they no longer serve someone in a certain area because there's not enough houses per square mile or what have you. And to me, that would seem like that'd be one of the most feasible would be to look at that and see how we can incorporate that into extending internet into some of these areas in the county. I didn't see that anywhere in here. Is that something you all look at? Is that something worth pursuing? Is that off the table?
Yeah, I thought that's what Lit Communities was going to do for us, is that they were going to look at all the different providers. And I would hope they would get with the school system and say, where's your greatest need in terms of students? And that's probably where we ought to look at spending money first.
Right, and they are doing that with the schools, and that will be rolled into the
So
final
what
plan.
is this? Because
This
the
was-
areas that you're covering here are not really that populated. All right? So,
Sure, if I could,
Yeah, go ahead.
if I could provide some clarification, these requests to receive study grants were separate and apart from our comprehensive effort to perform the analysis for any kind of wireless broadband infrastructure that would be developed and planned by the school district side, as well as any kind of fiber optic infrastructure that would be analyzing on the county side. So through our process, which we haven't even kicked off yet on the county side, absolutely, we would be looking at a review of existing infrastructure in the county itself to see what exists today, what does not exist, where those gaps are. We then will develop the planning information regarding the scope and the cost of those funding gaps and develop business plans and financial models to basically develop those in a phased approach. So basically, all this stuff is kind of coming at us in the wrong order than we typically see it. This was more pressing due to this deadline that is in a couple more weeks with the Virginia for the Betty grant. So, you know, we're kind of just accommodating a little bit of shuffle here, just trying to meet this deadline. But yes, what you expressed is something that will be part of our comprehensive analysis.
And let me address that shuffle just a second, so that we're talking about 3 different things today, and if you can keep that straight in your head. One is this total build-out plan that considers everything, and that's going to take months to finish, and a lot of data collection, and we're just getting started. Well, before they've started with that, we've asked them to do 2 other things. First one is, with regard to VATI grant money, the deadline to apply for those grants is next week, the 17th. And so we need help, before we even have a plan in place, we need help from our consultant to know what should we apply for, what kind of projects should we apply for. And we've got to know before the 17th, because you all have to approve us going to get those grants, okay? So that's a bit of a high-speed project, and SCS has proposed ideas to use that grant money, and Central Virginia Electric Co-op has proposed ideas for that grant money. They're used to applying for those grants. They've done it before. They will do the grant match. That VATI grant will take place without any cost on the part of the county. The problem is that the deadline is so close. We've had our consultant who we just hired, we've asked them to jump in and help us fill out those applications and pick which projects make sense. The other thing, so we've got the long-term plan, we've got the VATI grant, and the other thing that's pressing on us is the CARES Act money that both we and the schools would like to spend before the end of the year to advance broadband accessibility in the county. The challenge there is whatever we build takes months in terms of permitting, designing, and constructing, and we need to get going on that as soon as possible. We really can't delay because of all the other tasks involved to get it done. So in your mind, when we talk about the CARES Act money, that's what we need to start on right away. The VATI grant money will not be ours, but we need to apply by next week. And then the long-term build-out plan that considers all the options. Now, Mr. Pugh, with regard to Comcast, Jackie mentioned this earlier when she talked about the money that you approved today. We are talking with Comcast. They're fairly big and they're slow, but we're trying to get quotes from them on different projects. And when we do go out for bid on our projects, we will include Comcast on all of them. And as I read the report that I sent to you all today that came in from Fidelity and the communities, the bottom line was they advised us to go out for bid to get the various providers to suggest projects for us to move forward and spend the CARES Act money. And they would assist us in making the solicitation, and they will assist us in selecting which projects we ought to go forward with. Does that help?
Yeah, I think I understand a little bit better. My other question here is, I'm looking at your first page and it says, the VATI grant program provided $127,000 roughly in funding towards enhanced broadband and wireless infrastructure in Amherst County in 2019. There's currently $19 million of funding for the 2020 cycle. And I know that maybe this will be broken down in a different fashion, but the proposed projects, I think, is somewhere around $2.3 million or so to build these projects out. So what would the VATI grant cover? Just whatever part of the project you could cover, depending on how much you get? Is that?
Kind of, yeah. And there's three different VATI ideas that they looked at. Two of them were from CVEC and one was from SCS. And those have got to be fleshed out for purposes of filling out the applications. And then there's the topic of the CARES Act. And those are much smaller projects because they've got to be finished by the end of the year.
This is Renee from Prolific. So I think what's happening here is just kind of a convolution of a couple different themes that we need to cover work through. And I don't see any action items that were part of our memorandum to you guys. So really, it's just a presentation. And I think that now that you understand the context a little bit better, Don provided his take on the information that SBS Broadband provided. And, at this point, we do know what the CVEC was going to request, and Brian can talk a little bit about that in a second. But with regards to SBS Broadband, I wasn't able to find a dollar amount that they would be applying for. which you guys would be obligated to do at least a minimum of a 10% match towards that project too. So that might be something that you guys may want to work through, just to understand the ultimate dollar amount and the amount of money that you guys would be matching towards that.
Renee Clay Stewart is here to present that to us today, so we'll know that dollar amount today.
Later on, okay, good.
Yeah.
So basically, aside from what Don expressed to you regarding the SDS broadband information and the, the locations that they're proposing and our conclusion on that, are there any questions that you guys have regarding SDS? We can just move on to the analysis of the Central Virginia Electric Co-op, if you're ready.
Well, Mr. Rogers, when you were originally talking about the value grants, you said there's no cost to the county. What they just said is that there's a 10% match from the county. Is that correct?
SCS is willing to pay that.
SES is one place.
Yes, sir. Now, we can contribute county monies to that, which, when we throw more in, that improves our chances to be awarded the grant. And Clay will probably be able to address that too. Yeah, the more these projects all sort of interconnect and sync together, that also makes them more competitive to receive VATI grants. But one of the things we have to do with regard to the VATI grants is make sure that they do not overlap, because they won't give grant money for that.
So when is the lit community study supposed to be complete?
October-ish, is that it, Renee, as I recall?
For what? For
Completion of
will be announced?
But when your study will, the build-out plan will be finished. Is that October?
Can you recall that? I know it's before the end of the year.
Yeah, October,
Yeah,
November.
November,
Okay, thank you.
beginning to May.
So, all right, if I just, am I reading the tea leaves correctly? You're gonna tell us how much the tower sites are gonna cost, right? We already kind of know that the co-op, what that's gonna cost, right? So they go out and apply for this VATI grant, they're not gonna get the full cost, right?
Well, they're gonna apply for the full amount that they need.
Yeah, but more than likely, they're not gonna get the full amount. So.
Well, that's not necessarily true. I mean, we don't know. We don't know. There's 19 million to distribute. And but you're right. I mean, it's an unknown. It's an unknown.
It'll really be based on how good the proposal is, to be 100% honest with you. If they're going to get the full amount or potentially even a partial amount. So I think that's really important to put together in a short time period, is a solid game plan, proposal, and application, and then you've got a chance to win it all based on what the amount that they are submitting for.
Okay, so I guess what I'm getting to in the end is we've got $500,000 set aside for broadband, right? In the CARES fund.
Well, you did when you had 2.5 million, but now you have 5.5 million. And
Yeah, but right now, what we've agreed to, let's
yes.
call $1 million, $2 million, whatever, but come October, we're not gonna be able to spend $1 million.
That's right.
Right, and we're not gonna be able to spend 500,000, really. So, what do you propose we spend this money on?
Well, what I would like to.
Proposing that we offer it up as part of the funding for these VATI grants?
No, sir.
Okay.
What we have for you to receive today is information from SCS and information from CBEC with regard to projects that they think they can complete by the end of the year.
Separate of the VATI.
Just CARES Act projects.
Okay.
As I say, the VATI is fairly easy. We don't know if we're going to get the money or not. We hope to have all the money. We don't expect to have to put the county in. But we want the board to know and approve that we go forward with the VATI grant applications. And then I need you all to focus on the CARES Act money, on what you would like to approve with regard to advancing broadband accessibility.
So the VATI grants is straightforward.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Dr. Arnold, I'm not sure if you are prepared to answer this today. Do you know where your greatest density of students are that are not served?
Mr. Bryant and I.
Can you come up to the mic, because we're broadcasting and it's got to be in a mic.
I have the document here. Mr. Bryant and I have been working on the GIS mapping, and our data people have given Mr. Bryant information about where the people that reported they had not reliable internet, and then the folks that had reliable internet, and then our students that were on free and reduced lunch that worked, that didn't put either down. And so we have this document of the county, and it has all these points on it. So there are certainly some sections that could use some assistance. Obviously, if you look down here, this is where Madison Heights is, and all that blue are the people with good internet. And then right here is the town of Amherst, and those obviously are the Xfinity customers. But when you move out from there is when you start picking up those red dots.
So I'm just curious, I'm looking at your computer.
Yeah.
Is red where there's nothing, or is it
not reliable?
not reliable?
Not
So if it's
reliable.
not blue and it's not red, what does that mean?
They might have something, but it's not working particularly, or
Okay.
not every day, or, that kind of thing. Or they might be using some sort of hotspot that there's data limits and throttle data.
Could that include people that are satisfied with their service?
It could,
You're just-
because there are some
like-
blue spots out here, and that probably depends on the line of sight.
And have you passed that information to Lit yet? Okay.
So what do you, all right, I'm gonna be quiet in a second, but anyway, what if there's students, that live in Madison Heights that, there's internet available to them, but it's not financially feasible for them? How did that data get reported?
Yeah, well, Comcast has some programs that
Okay.
help with low income. And so there's some ways for those families to access, I guess, affordable internet options.
So it sounds like we're on the same page. I'm just gonna be quiet for a while.
Thank you. I have a question. When last night at 7 o'clock, the White House had a press conference and released more information about their plan to expand broadband throughout the country, just like the electrification of the 30s. And it was very interesting, and there was a call afterwards. But one of the things of interest to me was conversations that these deadlines on the CARES money, that everybody's now starting to recognize that nobody can do meaningful broadband expansion in 4 months. It just doesn't work, and that they need to address that. So people from lit communities, have you heard that? And what do you think, if you look in your crystal ball, could happen?
Yes, this is Ryan. Sorry, you go ahead, Ryan. Was the question concerning the time period to get anything meaningful done by the end of the year?
The question is, they're starting to look now that nobody can get anything done in that time period. So all this money will either be not used, taken back, or whatever. So there are conversations to extend for broadband, extend the time limit to be able to use the funds. Have you heard about that?
I have not heard about that. No, I think it's being brought up. But I think that's one of the other reasons we're under contract. The way we're set up is for if a change in development does happen like that, we would be able to work with you through it through grant services support from Renee. But we have not heard officially about them extending the deadline past.
Well, it's not an official action. No, I don't want to lead you to believe that.
No.
It's just start those conversations.
No
The
official
light bulb's
action.
coming on, people are starting to figure that out.
Ma'am, we will adjust when we're given that flexibility, but at this point, it doesn't exist.
Right.
We're planning as if it's not gonna happen.
Well, if I may, is there anyone advocating for that position? That's my question. That's what we need. We need to advocate along with everyone else. I'm sure we're not the only ones that are sitting here scratching our heads, looking at this information, being like, what is this the best thing for this county? Yeah, it just seems.
I think if you can advocate in parallel to moving forward, because right now what's happening across the country is also a backlog in materials. And the fact that you have to spend this money by the end of the year, you have to have materials in to be able to construct, to spend the money to justify it for use of broadband. So if we're not able to engineer now and get the plan completed and materials ordered, you're gonna miss the timeline potentially. And if something doesn't change, then, you know, you missed out on the use of substantial funds to progress broadband in the county.
Well, Madam Chair, I'm happy to consult with VACO and my colleague administrators and figure out who's doing what to lobby for more time, and come back and report to you all on what that is and how we might contribute to that. But meanwhile, I think we need to plan as if it's not going to change.
I agree.
And I will bring that back.
Again here. Sorry to interrupt there, sir. So no, I mean, we agree that you guys are having the same conversations that a lot of communities are having across the country, where there's a very narrow window to get, you know, work done to address this kind of broadband connectivity issue. So what we provided in the memo to you guys was an explanation from the Department of Treasury's website that does explain, you know, that whatever you do, if you do decide to do it, needs to be to folks that are impacted by COVID-19 or affected by it. And the way that we describe that would be, you know, individuals that are able to participate in distance learning or remote learning, or households that are not able to have that access to wireless infrastructure or fiber optic infrastructure to be able to work from home or operate their businesses from home. So there's a very narrow interpretation of what you're doing, you know, and I'm not saying this thing happens, but putting up a tower in a random place in the county without tying it to an affected population from the COVID-19 pandemic isn't going to be something that the Treasury would be looking favorably upon. But you know, in the case like where Dr. Arnold shared that map of where there's some areas that are lacking some connectivity or students that can afford it, you know, you would in theory need to propose projects that are directly impacting those folks that are affected by that lack of data, we believe. And, you know, we did detail in here that due to the deadline being very quick, and for us to not be able to make any assumptions about any vendors or capabilities, that we think that the best route to take would be a very brief request for bids or invitation for bids on your side, where, you know, you could talk about the amount of money that you guys would consider being put up potentially to invest in broadband connectivity. You know, we talked about potentially purchasing mobile hotspots and data subscriptions for students and households where the wireless access is available. We know that there's places that don't have good access to wireless, so that hotspot and the data subscriptions are only going to help so many students or people. Installation of equipment to enhance wireless access outside of county-owned facilities. Dr. Arnold can share with you guys the ways in which the school district was able to amplify its signal by spending out towards the parking lot, and be able to provide some connectivity for folks that would be able to travel to the actual the site. The improvement and enhancement of existing wireless sites throughout Amherst County, and the construction of cellular towers and fiber optic infrastructure in unserved or unserved areas in the county. And the same areas that the VADI grant program uses to determine eligible areas where service does not exist, below 25 megabits per second, are some of these areas where we recommend that if you are going to spend this money, that you would particularly need to make sure that those solutions are within those areas. But that's kind of what we felt like would be helpful for you guys to follow. And at the end of the day, if you guys don't get any bids back from any contractors, well, then at least you tried. But I suspect that there will be somebody in the private sector or the, you know, the vendor industry out there that if they can provide something, that they would in theory respond back to this bid if they can get it done by the end of the year. So we just felt that that was kind of the best route to take. protect you, protect everybody else involved, and you have a documented process that you can obviously show for auditing and record-keeping purposes. And then the last thing that I was going to mention is that we're working collaboratively with Amherst Public Schools, and they're pursuing some funds that were provided through the Department of Education. And that deadline for them to apply for that grant is not this Friday, but next Friday. So there is some intent to potentially see if any funding from that Department of Education program can be lumped into this other allocation that you guys have, potentially of $500,000. So we would like to see if we can augment that budget to do more potential rapid response solutions, as we described it in our book, in our memo. But that's the conclusion of what we need to cover here. I know we kind of put in a variety of order here, but Brian did not get a chance to speak about the CVET proposal and how that relates to everything, Brian. But
well, I think CVEC is more. Yeah, I think CVEC is more concerning the baddie in the memo. So I don't know if we need to stay on the CARES funding, but I think we kind of shifted a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, if you all can stand by a little bit, we'll have CVEC present their ideas and SCS present their ideas, and they've been refining on others too. So you may find there's some new information here for us to seek your counsel on. So, okay. So, Madam Chair, if we could, before we do that, if we could get the board's approval on the charter that you'd like to recommend for this body to the Board of Supervisors. We've been holding this charter around for almost a year and a half. I'd like to get it resolved and moved on to other business.
All right.
And then we'll take up the proposals that CVEC and SCS have brought.
All right, board members, have you had a chance to look at the charter? Any changes, anything that you all don't understand or want to change?
The charter is a deliberately short document that explains the role, the purpose, and positions here on Broadband Authority. We do this for all of our legislative bodies that we create. It's fairly simplistic. But it is useful for staff, especially as people turn over.
Right. Any questions?
It is authority issue today.
Yes.
The EDA, not the EDA, the chamber had approached me about having a seat on the board. And while that's probably not, based on the charter, a direction we can go in, at any time we can invite the chamber, or they can be here, and we can get input from them just as we could from the EDA or other entities.
In fact, I can talk with them about establishing a liaison that they appoint and just have here at all of our meetings, and we'll make sure that they're present. If that's what you'd like to do.
Is there a motion to approve the charter?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Ayers. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Charter is approved. Thank you. All right, the grant applications.
Okay, so now there's two more topics on the agenda. One is to put in front of you the projects that we propose to be submitted for BADI grants, so that you all can be aware of those applications and see if you have any questions about them. And then if there's any new information that we can ask the communities about those grant applications. And just a reminder, because a lot of this last discussion was about distance learning for the kids in school, but the money is also for teleworking of adults, all adults in the community. So while our immediate concern are the children and that they're starting up with school, the money is also for everyone else too. So, while we want to focus on the areas that have kids in them. Those, of course, are going to change over time, but there are adults everywhere that need internet access.
So we need a motion for the VATI grant applications, right?
Yes, if you'll,
I see the motion in front of us.
yes. But we haven't presented any information about that yet on what those are. If you'd like to receive that, or you'd like to proceed with the understanding that we're not going to be submitting any county funds, staff can continue to move forward with those. We have received Lit Community's advice on them, and will continue to receive their advice to make sure that whatever we apply for makes sense and contributes to the whole build out. And, you know, we don't paint ourselves into a corner somehow, or strategically cut ourselves out of VATI money, but we will work closely with our consultant. We're not making these decisions on our own.
Is it pretty much the projects that were
Yes, sir.
listed in this list?
Yes, sir. They're described as the VATI projects in there.
Yeah, I mean, I know you guys came out and looked here about your projects, but you guys kind of know what you need to do to expand the network, right?
Yes, sir.
And there's really no, I mean, it sounds like SCS is willing to pay the 10%. Is the co-op willing to do the same?
They are.
It actually requires 20%, and we'll pay 20%.
20 or 30?
Sir,
Can I just speak to that?
sir, can you come up here so we can all hear you, please? Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm Gary Wood. I'm the CEO of Central Virginia Electric and Firefly Fiber Broadband, our subsidiary of Broadband. And it would actually be the subsidiary that builds off of the CVC system versus the co-op building, just for legal purposes. VATI grants this year require at least a 20% match from somebody. They require at least 10% from the group that's constructing. So the other 10% could come from the county, or it could come from the partner that's doing the construction. VATI grants have a 300-point scoring system. It's a competitive grant. And the amount of match and the amount of state money per home passing are two of those pieces of the score. When you get a full score, you either get the full grant or you get none. You don't get a partial grant. So they may have applications for $50 million this year. They're going to award $19 million. And you want to be one of the better scorers in order to get that. We've been successful now in several VATI grant awards, as well as some Tobacco Commission awards that are similar scoring. So we have a pretty good idea of what makes a good project. We think one of the projects we have here is probably going to score higher than the other, but we're willing to put both of them in, make the commitment that we build them both if we are fortunate enough to get them.
So the motion of support from the locality part of the scoring process?
It's actually, the grant comes through the county, so we can't apply except through the county. The county has to be the administrator of the grant. And the county match includes time spent, staff time, as part of the administration. When the grant money is awarded, the county provides all the reports. We will provide report information to the county files it with the state site. And then in order to get reimbursement, we send bills to the county, and the county sends it to the state. State puts the money into the county accounts, and then the county writes us a check. So everything has to run through the county.
So the county is providing a little bit, albeit a small percent.
It is. So last year, one of the things I saw today, some counties put more in. They'll put a little bit of matching money because that does help. There's I think a 130-point category that looks at what the county's participation is. That's not all 30 points, but it's a little bit up. There's another 10-point category that it affects a little bit. Last year, on the average award, counties put in about 30%. That would be unusual in any of the grants. We have not had, in 3 out of our 4, the counties put up nothing. We put up the matching piece, and that's all. We did have one with Albemarle County where they put up about 10% of the money.
So Mr. Rogers, that's what I was getting at earlier. Why would we not CARES funding to make a better grant application?
Well, we certainly can, but I want to ask this question. With regard to the VATI application, can we not say that we are expending this CARES Act money? I mean, let's say you choose to spend $500,000 in CARES Act money. Would that help you win those 30 points in the scoring process because we're investing our own other money? Or does it have to be toward the grant project itself?
It has to be toward the grant project, and your timeline might be the key there, because they're gonna announce VATI awards next February, and you have 18 months to build it. And we'll be asking for reimbursement. If we start in February, it'll be out several months before we start looking for some reimbursement. So the money won't be spent quite as quickly unless there's other ways you can manage that timeline.
And when do you have to commit your share? At the application?
You have to commit it in the application, that's when it's scored.
So you might want to use the money, board members, that you set aside for broadband in general, or you may want to use some of the 2.2 million that's going to be reserved, just dropped into the general fund. I mean, there's all in all, there's enough funding for all of this.
So your proposal to us today was just to approve the VATI grant.
Well, that's the first one.
Staff doing the
Administration.
administration.
Right. Yes.
Without any of the CARES funding going to those programs.
Correct, because we were going to then talk to you about the next item, which was the CARES Act funding, and using that money more quickly to get other things. Because we, as good as the package may be, we may get nothing.
Yeah.
And so we're more focused on spending the CARES Act funding that we know we have, that's been given to us already, not on, betting on the come.
And if we tied up the CARES Act funding with the VATI grant that you may or may not get, then we're behind even more.
Right, then it'll be February before you know. So if you do want to commit money, and that's completely up to you all, from our standpoint, we would still pay the 20% of our costs, and we would suggest that you reduce the amount you're asking for from the state as far as that grant, because that reduces their cost per passing, and their return on investment is another calculation. So it helps you two ways. It helps you with points because you put it up, and it helps you because you're reducing their investment per passing. We'll still get the same amount we've committed that much.
So we'll work with CVEC and with lit communities to craft the applications strategically, so that to maximize our opportunity to win, hopefully.
Yes.
SCS also.
Sir.
And SCS.
Oh, with regard to their value?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Wood. Appreciate it.
Okay, so with regard to the VATI grants, there is a proposed motion that you allow us to proceed and craft those as best we can before we talk about CARES Act projects.
I mean, Madam Chair, it doesn't sound like that's really tying up anything on the county side except staff time. I mean, I think Mr. Rogers is very capable of managing the staff, so I'd move forward to approve the proposed VATI grant application.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Martin. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. The next item is with regard to how to spend CARES Act funding by the end of the year. And so SCS is here to present ideas, and Dr. Arnold hopefully can comment on some of those. And Mr. Moore will, separate and apart from the VATI grant projects, there are other smaller projects that we can get done by the end of the year. How would you like to proceed?
Mr. Stewart, are we ready for him?
Sure.
All right, Mr. Stewart, can you come up and give us your presentation, please?
My name's Clay Stewart, and I'm founder and chief operations officer for Celanet, where we market underneath the more known name SCS Broadband. I've been serving this county for 15 years as of this month. What I'm presenting is a combination of the experience we have of your territory as we have with 10 other counties that we serve today. Help again.
Now you can just hit these up and down as you go.
On the funding for this is heart to our company. We were founded due to the simple fact that prior to 15 years ago, I had served as an IT director for a private school that taught me the value of education and the internet. So this ACT funding became the CARES Act funding became a very important fact for me to see what we could do with this in this county. And I've come up with some ideas. The first idea is new broadband sites, adding to what we have in the county at this time, which consists of cell towers and community relays and poles of various types, and improving a couple of those perhaps, bringing them up from a 10-1 to a 50-10, which is what is our current system that we put out. And then one I've added in here, sort of at the last minute, was the CV19 wireless spots. And got different names for that, and I would like to give accolades to my county in Louisa, who we have 24 cell towers, and then we have about 14 90-foot community poles, big presence there, and have a great partnership with them as we do with Amherst. And the director of technology there, Mr. Chowdhury, has developed about 20 of these guys that he was using Wi-Fi and et cetera. And I'll get back into that here in a little more detail about what that is about. But it's a great idea in our current situation with CV19, as well as even if we didn't have it, it is a very functional piece of equipment. So you know about the background pretty much. I was told to you earlier. It sounds like a lot of money, 13 million coming down, and 385 is going to here for the CARES, which is not a lot of money, but we think we can do a lot with it, which I'll show you here in a second. We currently have 13 active sites in the county, and we have 2 sites that are in process at this time in the engineering in addition. And we'd also, as I mentioned earlier, we have the upgrades to some of these sites and the CV19 spots we'll talk about. And as mentioned earlier, these funds must be spent by 12/31. So there's a lot of effort put into what I'm presenting is, can we get these done by then? Number one. And number two, is it areas that is unserved or underserved, where we don't have the future Firefly coming in, that we don't have other situations like that. So in the last 48 hours, and I apologize for not being able to get all the information to them because there's an ongoing process. We started with 12 recommended sites, and we've been needling those down to what could be done with some of those for VATI or CARE. So we're doing both at the same time over these last 4 days. And so this is where we're at with a pretty solid recommendation. So new broadband sites. I'm recommending 4 community sites to be identified for broadband expansion. 3 of these would be community poles, small ones, 40, 60 footers. We have several of these throughout various counties. Obviously, counties like Nelson and Amherst, unlike our Surrey and Charles City County, which are flat, we have mountains here, we have tops, and we have locations. We talked with the site owners who are very excited to help out in this, or already is helping out in one way or another. And believe it or not, so I'd say my top 3 sites that have the most people on them are sites like that, not the dozens and dozens of cell towers that these are owned in the state. It's amazing if it's in the right spot. So we have that, and then we have one existing abandoned tower sort of up in the air, but it is, Sweetbriar IT director had once built a tower for himself to be off campus at a property owned by Sweetbriar. I've been in negotiations for that off and on for many years, and Dr. Arnold has reignited that for us. It may or may not happen, but I wanted to put it in there as a possibility because the tower is not located in Comcast area. It's located near Poplar Grove, where currently we are putting in a repeater in that community right now. But obviously, this not only would help them, but would help some other homes near there. So that's why it's been included as one of the 4 community poles, although it's more of a small, lightweight tower. 3 water towers have been identified, and there's 5. And we actually looked at all 5. And it's some decision making there. CARES not having the backup. Now, I do want to say one thing, that is, water towers are in an area where there is wire line today, Comcast or others, but unlike VADI, which does care about that, these funds don't. I want to get one thought, if I get one thought across to the board today, it's this. You need every media that you can to serve people, because people live differently. There are people in Afton Valley that are on our fiber, hundreds of homes I have in Afton Valley on fiber, 10 years doing it up there. And yet, I have 150 wireless still, because they don't switch. And the opposite of that would be Pennsylvania County, where I have a couple towers there, one in Halifax, which is slow to start up. They have DSL, and it's 2-3 meg DSL. It's not even the faster DSL yet. It's hard to get people to switch to come home. They still use satellite. So keep in mind that if you have a water tower that's got this landline, you've got to look at incomes of people. What the adoption rate, as we call it in our industry, is a hard thing to define. Marketing or otherwise, marketing studies, you study a neighborhood all to your blue in your face, and you go and you put a tower in there, and you really don't know until it starts. Because there's the people who can't afford it, there's the people that will never use it, never touch a keyboard in their life. There's a mix on every single tower, every single fiber run of what you will get. So keep in mind why we would put anything on a water tower in the middle of something like that. Is because there's people that cannot afford Comcast, that cannot afford something else, where we may be able to with our lower pricing. Then there's also the support, of course, which affordability and competition. I want to underline competition. Competition is good. When cable came in the 80s, it only took 5 years to go from my $40 a month when I first got it in Centerville to $150. When I left there 10 years later, it was $210. So prices declined because there was no competition. All right, community sites. This is the 4 locations. The green represents computer generated that we use for all our work. It's a 75% to 100% adoption rate in that green area. And the one I would like to point out first is one to the west. That's on the back side of Tobacco on a private property. That's one of our small poles. We have one up there on the east side. We want one on the back side. Why? There is no service down 130 once you pass Elon and go past the mountain there. Nothing. So those people will be able to have service now at a fairly low cost. And then we have the one, and I'm going to go through these individually, unless you want to ask about them.
Process for these.
I'm sorry?
We have to go through any permitting process.
Jeremy, what are we going to do on the permitting process? It's going to depend on the tower height, I'm sure.
60 feet.
Permitting
Well,
process?
the ones that are 60 feet or less, we actually, a few years ago, we changed the ordinance to deal with those in a conversation that we had with Clay. So anything 60 feet and lower, we can do those administratively. Anything above that, we do it from we go through the public hearing process.
So that's why I keep these at 60 feet or lower. There's one actually, that doesn't even need to be 40 feet. That's the top one up there. That's on Scott Mountain, where we already have a site. What this site here would do is add additional capability, the LTE, the 50/10 speeds. The other community sites is the Sweetbriar Tower. And then over on the far right is Greif. I've been talked to Greif over the last 15 years many times. They wanted our service many times. I actually had built their network system for them one time. And they have a hill that's cleared off that we walked twice over there to IT director. Now they will have wireline going in, which is fantastic. They've been waiting for it for a long time. Verizon wanted to charge them $1 million plus to run that one mile. So I'm glad to see that Firefly hopefully will get in there. But like that, and like our industrial sites that we have here and there, and schools and post office and stuff, having a wireless backhaul as a backup to the fiber. I have a fiber down right now. Hit tornadoes to hit over in Charles City in Surrey County just a little while ago. And we have an entire business, the Charles City Roxbury Business Park is down. We have about 30 major businesses. It does happen. Fortunately, we do have a backhaul capability out of Surrey County to bring that in. So that's why it's been important for Greif to work with us again, as they have in the past, because the reason I have that in there, the population's not so great along the James River, but nonetheless, and I'll never get a VATI grant for something like that. These are the holes that people will get. Comcast is going to go there. VATI's not going to finance. But here's a chance for all those people that run from Greif down the river and then along the entire plateau there up to the, it's got different names, Buffalo Mountain Range, the eastern side. So all those homes in there currently have none or very limited service from us. So this would solve that problem. So those are the three community homes. You also read on this guide here, the population is pretty accurate on what that's the green area. It's doing a calculation. Divide that by I think in this county it's 2.6 kids, or 2.6 people per house, something like that. And you end up with about how many homes that you have potential to in that area.
Well, some of this even goes over to Bedford County though, right?
Radio waves don't stop at counties, and
So
that's a good point.
That population also includes some of that area.
Yeah, you'll see that note on one of my coming up slides. Underneath the black, you'll see this includes other counties because it does calculate the entire.
Okay. I got a question for you, Bill. How many subscribers do you currently have in the county? Do you know, or I know it's hard number to come off the top of your head.
I don't have it at the top of my head. We also give that out under NDA.
Okay.
I do give it out to broadband authorities. We get an NDA for that piece right there. The reason, obviously, is I do have competitors,
Sure.
wireless and others.
Understood.
I'm pretty free with some information.
Oh, understood.
Because this is very valuable to a couple of people here in the wireless business in this area. So this is our active and in process. So the two blues are in process. That's the courthouse tower downtown, and then we have up on Rocky Mount, which is very high up there. It's the tallest place I've ever seen in this county, I believe. So that's I think about 4,600 feet, something like that. So that one's going to serve some people that are very, very remote in that part of the county. And we'll also bring in some funds from another county, it looks down on the Blue Ridge Valley. But also it will provide some backhaul calls that has such visibility across many counties. So it's a very important tower for us. The greens are all active towers that we have in work today. And I like saying that, this is the first chart I've ever put the 75, 100% in there, because sometimes people see the green, I think it's 100%. And it's wireless, like your cell phone, right? So it's 75 to 100. That's a really good range in this particular tool. This one here is a sort of a garbage looking thing, but what that is, just to give you a surprise. We know where your needs are. You can do all the surveys you want. And surveys have some great things that you get back, but unfortunately, a lot of people don't respond to them, or the categories of people don't respond, you get that. What we have is, this represents, we go back 8 years on this particular tool. This represents 2 years. Every yellow dot you have, you see in Paladino, I think the count was something like 3,000 something. Those are individual people who went to our website, driven there by our marketing of Google or Facebook or whatever, that actually took the time, put their name in, and sent it. And this tool grabs that, sends us all their information, what towers we can shoot to and all that, but also it keeps us a populated map. So using this, overlaying it, when I was looking at and narrowing down the towers that I'd given lit and the towers that we were going to present here, this was one of the driving forces. Where are people needing and asking for service? And you will see people wanting service in wireline because they're not happy with the service support, or they're not happy with the pricing. So if you do actually do see that here, as you see in the lower part there, even in Lynchburg, see, we're in Lynchburg in this map here, we get a request from Lynchburg, which has fiber everywhere. So you gotta keep that in mind. But that was one of the driving things, is our request. Active and community sites. So this combines to what would happen if we added those community sites in? The propagation goes to this. So you can see the new sites in red. The green, of course, is our active, and then the plan. And you also will notice that they're sort of spaced out. The only two that you might question would be the lower left, where you got a red, you got a new one, sort of close to a green one. You're on different sides of the mountain, that's why. And then you got one over on the right, and that is a small some personal property relay, and what we were suggesting there is a tower out to the right. So it will make a huge difference in how many people we can serve. Water towers have been included, as I mentioned, and these are the locations of the county water towers and what it would look like. Now, you won't see a huge green coming from these as far as adoption rate, because they are limited in what you can do. There's a certain size to them. Honestly, it's worthwhile doing, in my opinion, because of the difference between this chart and the last one is a great many people here in the rural area of your county that we're working with. And this one here, at least 3 of these are in more highly populated. So even though we don't go out very far for these short water towers, we hit a lot of homes, as many as we would on a rural tower, and offer them an alternative to broadband and low cost. That's another reason I include it. We're not talking about a huge tower. We're not talking about engineering. We're not talking about any of it. It's very easy to do a water tower. We do them almost weekly. So I've got 3 of them doing in $1 million, and 2 in Dinwiddie coming up this month. Very easy, very fast to put up. Community water towers, that's just a combination of the community and the water towers, taking out the existing ones. This is what we're looking at in the growth of the money that I'm asking to do this with. So it's pretty extensive. Improving existing services. I mentioned license links here. I didn't put that cost in the end here, but I wanted to mention that is something that if we have decided that we're going to do this project, if something happens that we can't do that, this is sort of a throw in to say, well, you know what we can do with that? We can throw up $6,000. You can take a link that is extremely important, serving hundreds of homes, and turn it to a license link and have more quality and more bandwidth for that link. So that's a great upgrade. Upgrade Wi-Fi to LTE 2 sites. I picked out 2 sites to do that with. Again, this is a fairly low cost guy. So that means we go from 10.1, that's been there for years, to 50.10 today. We are testing at 250, and we will have 5G by this time next year, as our manufacturer has partnered with another company for new chips.
We will get 5G in Amherst County.
Yes, it'll be broadband over 5G because it'll be SCS. I can't rule out the phone stuff because as you know, there's something going on and it includes phones. So we have that. We have, as I mentioned, the license, the interruptions. So I have 3 listed there that I have in mind. Now I'm paying, honestly, I'm mentioning this as a backup plan. We are adding license links in the next 2 months in the out-of-hour calls. Allows for applications like Zoom and meetings. So we're taking these 2 old sites and making them more capable to do the Zoom than they are now. So that's the purpose of the improving sites. Now we get into the last one, portable CV19 broadband sites. So what are these? Well, I was amazed. Again, hats off to Louisa County and IT and others who work on that project. And I really thank them for getting me involved in it. They got me involved because they were using these built trailers that have fully capable of being 24/7 operation anywhere, off grid, well built. And they were having a problem that they were using satellite and cell in remote sections. And we know that doesn't always work. Well, they found out that many that they had, that was a big problem. We have 26 sites throughout the county. So it was just an easy decision to make. Let's join in. So we readapted their equipment. And with that, we have a site. I believe they're doing different things with it. I think they're going to have the food bank check-in at one of the schools. They just talked about having a tent and school check-in out in the soccer field. This will be there. It broadcasts with a laptop. You can walk 1,000 feet away from this and still have 35 meg. That's what we tested here last Friday on our site. We'll be adding a second one at another school the day after tomorrow. So it's really exciting to me that here's a CV19 tool that actually works. If you can you can use it for different aspects of the school system. That is in this period that we still don't, as we all know, still do not know. My wife is a CFO for Miller School, and today she's in a meeting right now where they're announcing online only for boarding school. Things are changing daily. I can tell you that, as you know, we don't know what's going to happen this fall and change, so we need to be prepared. And I think one of the prepared is a simple thing. Let's make sure that as many people as possible have a way to use education, even if it's sitting in a car in a parking lot someplace, being able to do that. These do work. So I won't go too much more into those other than, the way we're proposing this is free public access via where we should put them. Made a couple suggestions. It could be Nelson School. It could be a partnership with one of the businesses for areas and parking lots that obviously is quite empty these days. Social distancing for school events, field registration. It can be used for that. And of course, I mentioned food bank processing. And I like that statement that parents and students can pull up in their vehicles and connect to the wireless internet, download assignments, upload assignments, do whatever they need to do. So who is the most important person to use that right now today, even without this fear of what might happen? It's all of those people that are still driving to the library or driving to a school which may or may not be open. So this gives them another opportunity to be able to continue their education. Here's your picture of what one looks like from a standpoint. The one that we have is a little upscale to this one here. That's a prototype there. And this is what it looks like in operation. This is a cell tower nearby that we have enough towers in this county that I feel very confident that we will be able to manage getting a service to where we place these guys, one way or the other. That one there is connected up to a gig no overkill, but that's what it is. And then the wireless that goes out 1,000 feet. And a wireless laptop's limited anyhow, unless you've got one of the really good ones. 99% of them are limited about 35 meg home or wherever. So that's what we were testing 1,000 feet from this. Summary costs, this is the last screen here of information. The new community poles, 3 community poles is $120,000. That includes everything. No hidden there. That's getting the pole, getting it in the ground, and all the equipment, all the LT equipment that goes on there, all the labor. One existing abandoned, that's cost of negotiations. We don't know what that is, but there's money left over for that, way more than enough, actually, in my opinion, for what that tower should be worth. It's a light tower, by the way. It's not a heavy duty tower. It's tall, but it's not light and heavy for wind load. We have the water towers and equipment around 150,000. If we did all 5, I mentioned earlier, I would probably suggest about 3 of these. 2 on the backhaul to see, make sure that this goes well with adoption rates. 1 and 2, looking at some of the neighborhoods where they're located at, whether that is more viable versus another. Some of them are more viable than others as far as the citizens. Then improving existing services. I'm shocked there, you see that site upgraded from Overland's high speed, $25,000. That's it. It was not a lot of money. That's not all the costs we're covering, some of that. But that's what we was asking for helping out in turning an LTE radio and its supporting equipment such as antennas and all that runs around 10 grand. We're talking a lot more than just 2 or 3 of these guys that do these 2 sites. It would be on those sites a total of 4, I believe. So we're still paying more than what is on here. In the portable units, 2 units, 25,000. What that includes is the entire unit built with everything you need. Free access to the SCS network for a year, and free maintenance on that for a year. The reason we use there is not that I'm coming back to try to make a charge and make a lot of money or anything on this. It's have some sort of framework there, so it's not forever and ever. That hopefully will be out of this mess within a year, right? And then suggest, and I was suggesting 10%, and I keep forgetting what's stuck in my head, that it's sold off. But I would be willing to speak with the new owner down there. I think that's a great spot for those people back there. I've talked with those citizens back there personally as we expand in that area, in different areas from our mountain sites. There's so many, it's so ripply in there. It certainly is a need for these people not to have to travel all the way over here someplace for their children to get on the internet. They need something in order desperately. So that's one of the reasons I suggested that, even if it's not school. Total page 340 with the entire question mark. Again, we don't know if that's going to happen yet. That's pretty much it. That's our Richmond. That's where I send you guys. Everybody at Summer Service, you go to Richmond, and there you go directly to Facebook. It's a sharing that we are a partnership in. We're on the board, and it's what makes it work. You can watch an HD movie at 2.5 megabit for sure, and the reason you can is because of this, because we have this huge pipeline that goes from here to there, and then when you go to the internet, you go to Ashburn. That's where you jump off there, because Ashburn is the hub of the, there's your community pole. Accepted in luxury HOAs. That's actually a marina in Lake Anna. And it's a 420 lot HOA, and we have 6 of those in there to serve the community. That's a LTE system on top of it. So that's what a pole could look like. That one there happens to be 60 foot Any questions? Who cares?
I got a couple, and one is for, the schools. Looking at all of this, I think this is great, and I know that these temporary, things at the schools are, it serves a purpose. But to me, it does nothing but, it just promotes the whole disparity that we see between the urban kids and the rural kids. Rural kids gotta get in the car, drive somewhere, get somebody to take them first, hope they have a car that somebody's not using to do their homework. How do y'all feel about that?
We agree with you. I mean, that, the fact that we put internet on our buildings and turned it around into the parking lot to say, come on in and use it. We didn't get a whole lot of folks come in because, like you say, not everybody can do that.
Right.
And in this case, if our students are at home and parents are at work and they can't drive, then it becomes a problem. And so I think that is, like I said the other night, our best bet is to get internet to the homes, but, we're also in a place where we're trying to, I guess the best way to put it is create a very short-term solution.
I understand. But yeah, I firmly believe it's like anything else this county does. If we're gonna do it, we ought to try to do it right. And we ought to try to do it to where every child has an opportunity. Everybody gets to work from home if they have that opportunity. Anyway. My thoughts on that.
Thank you. Not a quick reply on that. Ours is that every home needs it. There's no doubt. And I applaud Firefly for what they're doing. And my concern, the reason I added this in was simple. I'm a believer that, especially with what's happening in my own personal life right now with my wife's school, that we need to look at what are we going to do when they can't go someplace for internet. They can't go to a library. They can go. And what sold me was Louisa, and what I could gladly post to you is pictures of this Thursday when there will be people in that field using that. It does work.
Mr. Rogers, what's next?
What's next is I'm gonna
Thank you,
ask.
Mr. Stewart.
I'm
We
gonna ask
appreciate
Ms.
everything you're doing for Amherst County and trying to drag us along to the 21st century. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you.
So just to remind the board where we're at, we're trying to decide how to spend our CARES Act money. Here's a proposal for $340,000 plus whatever Sweetbriar College comes up with. And so I've asked Mr. Moore to come give us some proposals. Now, all these proposals, the condition is it can be done by the end of the year. And so for you, in your mind now, there's $340,000 that you could set aside toward broadband. You've already set aside $500. These other projects are going to be a bit more expensive. I'm going to need to know whether you want us to proceed with these projects or any of you don't want us to proceed, because the way that we do it is we're going to go out for requests for proposals, hopefully this week. We'll get lit communities to help us draft up a request for proposals. It'll be fairly broad. Please bring us your proposals on how you can increase internet access to people in the county before the end of the year. We'll send it to Comcast, we'll send it to SCS, we'll send it to CDEC. They'll come in with their proposals, and then we have to bring them to you all for your approval. But as you'll see, the dollars are going to mount up. And I need to get a sense for what you're willing to spend to improve broadband. We were playing with about $2 million, if you want to go that far. And so here's $340,000 plus if Sweetbriar wants to participate or not. They owe me a call back today, I keep checking. But now I'd like Mr. Moore to come and present what can Firefly do by the end of the year. So you can have that at the front of your mind too.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. I'm going to go by Mr. Wood. for the rest of the presentation. That's okay. I don't need that. Yeah, you can pass those out. Let me grab one so I know. So for a high-tech, project, I brought you a low-tech presentation. I think we sent a little more info out, earlier about this. As Mr. Stewart alluded to, these have come up on short notice, and so we're working very quickly and still putting information together. In order to build this by year end and build fiber off of our network, we have limited options. On this piece of paper, Boxwood Farm Road up at New Glasgow is at the top of the page, and you'll see a little blue line that comes into the green area. That blue line is fiber that is served out of our Colleen substation. The fiber is actually there today. It has not been spliced. That's part of the a substation we're building out right now. It'll be spliced within the next 6 to 8 weeks, and we'll have the internet available at the end of that. That is the place in Amherst County that we have that I can assure I can get construction out and everything lit by the end of the year. We're likely going to be in Gladstone also, but I can't assure that. I've still got to build across the river from Appomattox, and then we're going to be building down in the Gladstone area. But if I've got to be sure, this is the place I can be sure. When we talked earlier about where there are pockets of students, I think if you're looking at short-term solutions and how to get things out there, that works. If you're looking at how you're going to get the whole county covered over time, particularly if you're going to do it with fiber or with a high-speed connected land-based solution, you've got to kind of go from place to place where you can connect. So you've got to either have a main line running up Route 29 that you're coming off of that one of the main providers has, or you have to come off of some other fiber. So that's how we started in this area. Then we looked at what's reasonable to do within 6 months, and that is really, really short turnaround. Generally, we run 12 to 18 months when we're building on our overhead lines, because we have to do some work on the poles, and that takes about 6 or 8 months. Then we do things with the fiber. This assumes an all underground construction. First of all, it would be on Appalachian power poles, and we don't have time to work and negotiate with them and then have them come in and do any upgrades for clearance issues. So this assumes an entirely underground build. That's a more expensive construction. When you're trading off speed versus cost, it's more expensive to go underground, but that's your option if you've got to get it done this year. So this is all underground and VDOT right away, and it's mainly along Boxwood Road is kind of the core area there. It goes up Toy Town Road and stops at the railroad. That's because to get a railroad permit, it takes anywhere from 3 to 6 months and costs about $20,000. The cost isn't the big deal, but you can't depend that you're going to get across. We also stop down here at Turner's Creek, because to get across the creek, sometimes you run into environmental issues that can hold you up, so we stop at the creek. So that's part of how we defined this area. Then we looked at what we could realistically get built for somewhere in the neighborhood of $350,000 to $400,000. This is about 6 miles total of underground. It goes by 180 homes. And we can do that. In order to do that, I actually was pushed today by our engineering group. We approved them to start design of this today, because they told me if we waited 2 weeks, we won't get it done. So they're designing it. I'm taking that risk until we know whether or not you find this a good project. I'll be paying for the design. If we don't use the design now, maybe we'll use it down the road. Maybe I'll just eat the cost, but I'll have a couple of weeks of that. Because we've got to get it designed. We have a good bit of materials in hand. We're building about 25 miles a week right now. We'll build about 800 miles of fiber this year in our other projects. So we have a good bit of material always in the warehouse, and we'll be able to redirect that. We also have contractors already under contract with that much construction. We've got about 200 folks extra working on our system right now, and we'll be able to assign them. So we've got contractor personnel, we've got materials, we've got to get the design done, we've got to get VDOT permits to be in the right of way, and get out there and build it. And that will take right up until late December, depending on weather. And we're trying to leave a little time in there in case of bad weather. So it's about $70,000 a mile to build underground, all in cost. If I could do that on APCO poles, I could probably get that cost down to 35 or 40,000 a mile. If I built it on my poles, I could do it for 25,000 a mile.
How come you can't do it on your poles?
I don't have any poles here. My pole stops at the blue line.
Okay.
So then it's APCO service territory.
Okay.
And with APCO, we have to pay a little more because they have more clearance issues, and that's why it costs a little more on their poles. When you go underground, it's even more expensive.
So why did you start over here? Why didn't you start where you had poles?
Well, I start right there where the blue line that comes in at the top. That's the last pole I have. That's the edge of the poles. So we're already building that. You don't need to pay for that. We're building everything to our members already.
Okay, so that's already.
This is in addition to the electric co-op members.
Okay, okay.
So the electric co-op members on the line going from there back to the county line will already have that option. That there's the co-ops building that fiber and Firefly's selling internet service, and you don't need to do anything for that. We'll be in Gladstone the same way, doing that by here, and then out of Piney River substation, we'll go up through Temperance, Louisville Road, and all the way up Route 60 to the Blue Ridge Parkway. That's probably going to be, that project being about the 2022 timeframe. All told, we've got about 1,015 homes in Amherst County we'll go by. We're really simple. We hook up the fiber. We got two services, $49.99 for 100 megabit service, $79.99 for gigabit service. And we sell phone for $29.99 if you want to add that on to one of them. And that's it. And we're doing it because it's service oriented. We're owned by a not-for-profit at the co-op. We're not in this to make a lot of money. We're in a demographic area that needs reliable, affordable service. That's what we do. And that's what we do here, the exact same thing on the system. So, so that's our project. That would be our proposal. We can get it done. It also allows us then to continue when we have more time to look at other areas that have the need for the same type of service, and we would be able to extend further off of this, whether that's next year and future years.
So what did you say, how many houses you thought this would?
It's 180 in that.
180?
It's 180 in the green.
So are you coming down 151 or not?
151, we do not come that far south right now. We cross 151 a little further north. We have the Batty project that would come down 151.
Okay, that's far.
That's the Batty project that would put us over onto 151 and up Fletcher's Level Road.
And then down to Lincoln Country.
And down Lincoln Country Club down 151. We cross 151 up toward Warwick One Road, a little further north up in that area, and then go up to Louisville.
That's about a little over $1,900 a household.
But for underground, it's $70,000 for underground.
Per mile.
And you said if you had to use Appalachian poles, it would be what, 30?
Somewhere 35 to 45, depending on how old the poles were. I mean, they'd change out.
Yeah, guess what, you're not gonna have any tree limits for all.
Well, and surprisingly, we have a lot of this on our existing system, on the electric system, where it's overhead, we put the fiber overhead, where it's underground, we put the underground. We started this in August of 2018. We've had 2 places where the fiber has broken and caused outages. We get about 160 power outages a month, but the fiber is very flexible for one thing, so it stretches when the lines go down, and it's also in a has a strong sheath around it, so that protects it. So it's really reliable on the poles as well. We've had very few outages. Now, if your electricity's out and your router's not running, whether you've got fiber, but if you have a generator or battery backup, the internet's running even if the electricity's out.
Will you seek AEP approval?
We will try, but to be honest, that the timing is, it will take AEP 2 months to send somebody to look at poles, and then 2 more months to get a design out to a contractor to start construction and then 2 more months. So that they're easily 6 or 8 months before their poles would be ready. And so we can't do that easily here if we try to do it right here.
If I could assist in speeding that with my contacts in ADP, you could do that. Would that allow you to go even further?
It could. So one of the things we would do with this is contact them, and if we can get on poles even in portions of this, that would allow that to be built cheaper and we could go further. Yeah. And it may be that we could do that where we would go underground for half a mile and pop up and maybe go a mile overhead and then go back underground to avoid work, and we'd be willing to do that.
Dr. did you have something you want to say?
Yeah, just based on this data right here, we estimate, looking at our data, about 50 homes with our students in. So I can't say that's 50 children, it'll be more than that, but it's a well-populated area for us, yeah.
Thank you.
Another question. Who pays from the VDOT right-of-way into the house? Does the homeowner or do you all do that?
This would run all the way into the house, except for a couple of really long ones. So we will go about 1,000 feet, and beyond that, we charge it's a little over about a foot. And if we had somebody who had a real need and wasn't able to afford that, we can look at some things. But up to 1,000 feet, we pay and go all the way in. We provide the router, and we maintain the router, replace it if it goes bad, and we actually provide wireless internet service inside the home, guaranteed at whatever speed you're at. What's 100 megabit or gigabit. So wireless gigabit's a little, you have to be wired, actually touching the router to get that. Yeah. All right.
And again, the cost of this project?
This is, it's about 400,000. I said 380 is what we would ask the county for. It's about 420 total. We'd be putting up the other portion. Plus, then there's some actually work back into our system that I haven't even priced because I haven't had time. But we'll also do. We'll just, from here, I've got to run a 48 fiber cable back up to the Collins substation on the poles where we already have the thing. So so anyhow, we'll do some other work. 380 from county.
Okay.
And we would connect with no fee to the homeowner after we're finished building in an area. We charge $100 to connect service. No contracts. If you're in for a month and want it out, we don't charge anything. If you want to get back on, get back on. So.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. So at this point, we put $720,000 worth of projects in front of you. We're gonna try to see what we can get from Comcast in terms of just laying copper in the ground. But they're interested in.
Or they don't necessarily have to be copper, it could be cable lines where the cable lines.
Whatever it is.
Yeah, that's the cheaper. You get more bang for your buck going overhead than you do underground. There's no doubt about it.
We will put the solicitation out. We'll make sure that Sciontech gets it, Comcast gets it, those two get it, and anybody else we can think of. But again, the challenge is spending it by the end of the year. So you've set aside 500 so far. We could spend 720 to get what you've seen, and plus more if Sweetbriar makes land or a tower available. And then whatever Comcast can do. So I guess, pardon?
I'm gonna ask this question, it might be sensitive. Do you guys ever like talk to one another and say, hey, I'm right here and I got this fiber? And you say, well, if I could put this tower up here and hook into your fiber, we could serve X amount of people, but some people, I think you kind of inferred this, some people might choose you because you're talking about gigabit service, right? But you see what I'm saying? Do you guys talk and share, or do you play in the sandbox together or not?
We have not. It certainly was always on my wish list to be able, if you run fiber through 50 homes, for instance, and I throw a tower that's in my patty presentation I had, was to be at the wood mill right here on Toytown. it doesn't do 50 homes. It will do probably 200 to 300 homes for less money. So to run the fiber there, as he was, this is as an example. If we were working together, we could be leasing that fiber he's bringing into that very spot right there. He can't go across the railroad track or what have you. We can. Now, the railroads will charge me for my wireless to go across. And if we put what I had for the diagram for that site, it's a 120-foot tower, easy to get through, I believe. It's a industrial site behind the Exxon there, the wood mill. And it will take care of, what I love about that, it's going to take care of people in Tusculum, who I have a friend there, whose main office is on 5th Avenue, and then right over here, 1 mile, 30 degrees this way, is a trailer park. So the number of people just have one tower, just to answer your question. And the open forum here at this moment, of course, I'm very interested. I do this with other counties.
And of course, they're both supplying information to lit communities. And lit is charged with coming up with a plan that makes sense. But of course, I think we as the government want to promote competition. Because just because somebody wants fiber, they buys the house now, owns the house now, the next owner might want to do wireless or can't afford it.
Well, yeah, but I think at this point in time, we want to promote getting as much
As possible.
internet service in the county as possible.
Absolutely.
And if that involves people partnering with each other, so be it, right? Then how they compete with one another after that, that's up to them.
Well, when we put our general solicitation out, we're certainly not going to discourage partnerships being formed and people submitting proposals to achieve that goal. That's what LIT is going to help us describe in the solicitation, what it is that we can do and what they can do. And we'll go forward from there. But I wanted you to see, I mean, this is the first time we've seen this, so this is what's available. Would you please give us your permission to proceed with the solicitation and have in the back of your mind that at this point, we're looking at $720,000 and we may get some more in terms of uses for that $2 million that's available.
So when would the solicitation be done?
My goal at communities is that we can publicize it on Friday.
Yeah, because the clock's ticking, right?
It is ticking, and so David Profit's ready to go. He needs LIT's help. I'm hoping that LIT has done this in a variety of other places. They can pull something off the shelf and tailor it to us, and David can publicize it on by Friday.
Lit, does that sound like something you're able to do?
Well, Renee here, that's a very unreasonable timeline, but we're willing to work with whatever we can get done. I mean, if you guys have an existing bid document, Michelle, where we can review and maybe replace some information in there, then we could possibly do that. If in the actual memo that we provided to you, in the body of that, we actually proposed a little bit more of an August timeframe to allow us to actually prepare this properly. I mean, we understand that it's the impetus to get the money out there, the solicitation out there quickly so folks can get going on projects. But I don't think that's very feasible, professionally speaking, to put together within 3 days an RFP that has a value of $750,000 potentially. But,
Well, I admit that's
It
my
is
personal goal.
It's an ambitious goal,
and it isn't,
but do you
it
think,
is ambitious.
I'm looking at my calendar, so Mr. Rogers was saying, could you get something by the 7th? You're saying the middle of the month, so can you get something by the 12th?
By the middle of next week, yeah, I mean, I think that's a lot.
Okay, all right. Everybody good with the 12th? I mean, that old saying, you can do it good or you can do it fast. We want to make sure you do it good.
Yeah, exactly. We
Okay.
don't want to do anything good and then have it be bad, have to make a mistake.
Right.
We can avoid.
Does that work for y'all?
The key for us would be knowing on the other side when you would be making a decision. So going back, because we're gonna be paying for design, and gonna need to start ordering equipment and material. And the design is one cost, I'd rather not order too much equipment just for this area. It's not going to do it. So when you make a decision would be important to me, as important as putting it in. I can put it in by the 12th, but when would you make a decision?
We put leave the solicitation open for 10 days. So on the 22nd, or the close on the 22nd, and then make the decisions on the 23rd. If you all would give us the authority to make those decisions, so we don't have to come back to
23rd is
you.
a Sunday.
Okay, then can we close it on Friday? Does it have to be 10 days at the minimum?
Yeah, it needs to be minimum 10 days. They have to look at calendars exactly.
Can I mention something
He's
here
probably
real quickly?
gonna be-
Sure, Renee, go ahead.
Dr. Arnold, you're in the audience as well too, sir, but, you know, we had mentioned potentially being able to apply to the state of Virginia for an additional amount of money to be lumped into this pot, or rather, this contribution. And we won't know back from the Virginia, state of Virginia until the end of August. So if there are extra funds that could be added to this pot, we wouldn't be able to have the contractors be able to, they don't know what budget they're going to be working with, because that decision may not be provided by the state at that time. So that's why I was proposing to proceed at the very beginning of September. So I just want you guys to know that there's a lot of fast-moving timeframes here, and in conjunction with other timeframes with other grants. And, we understand everything needs to move quickly here, but if you asked us for a recommendation, I ask you to just please read the memo. It gives us kind of a proposed timeline that I think works a little bit better than something that is a little bit kind of fast-paced like this. That's just my recommendation from having done this in the past.
Well, I'm a bit confused because we're just talking about county money at this point, not grant money, not additional money, just the money that we have on hand.
Okay. Well, that's fine.
Mr. Rogers, I mean, the 15th is the middle of the month, you're saying the 12th, they give them an additional 3 days. We rushed this.
Okay.
I got a question, I have a question though, everything has to be completed, everything has to be completed before the turn of the new year. Is that what you're saying? Or can it be started and continue as long as you sign the contracts? I'm unclear on that.
We asked that specific question, and the answer is that the things that we purchase have to be in service by the 30th of December. Now, we can take an additional 90 days to send the check, but the products have to be delivered, the construction has to be completed, the internet has to be in service on the 30th of December, unless they change the rules, and that's what Ms. Tucker mentioned. If people are pushing with that, and I'll certainly explore how we push for something more reasonable.
Please forgive me, but did the schools have any broadband money or not? No?
We have CARES Act.
They have CARES Act money as we do.
And what are you spending yours on?
We have until 2022, I believe, September 2022.
I'd rather fire, man.
No,
And when we're, as Stacy mentioned, we're in discussions with them to find out which of their current expenses before 30 December we can pay that is the same thing as a salary switch. It then gets us out from under the deadline. But, I mean, you've already got $2.2 million that are not subject to all of these rules. But we still haven't spent all of the money, all the 5.5 million. And so what I'm trying to do is what can we lock up? So we're gonna try to get some from them, and we're gonna build some broadband projects and all the other projects. I'm trying to lock up as much of it as possible. And also move as much of it as possible into the general fund, just for you to use in a relaxed pace and wisely.
So you're kind of waiting for the lit community thing to come back, or not?
They are.
Yeah, we are.
Yes.
Yeah. We want a solution, a long-term solution.
What is, I mean, we've got SCS and we got CVEC here. And I know this is an ambitious timeline for you all, I appreciate that. What's your drop dead date? When do you have to know for certain that, yes, we want to partner with you and we want you to do this work? Give us a date.
First, PERT for SES is material orders. As CV-19 is impacting us tremendously in that area. It's a lot better right now, but there's no sure thing about it. So we need to get orders in as soon as possible. I would say.
You need to come up here, because you need to come up here, because I can't hear you. Come up here, Clay, come up here.
The date is, I would say, end of the month for us. That gives us 2 months to get materials. We've been, been really hit hard. We went without a single customer radio in LTE for 4 months, and now we've got tons of it coming in. That was a delay, and there's a concern about and this also affects the tower equipment as well.
But your answer is end of the
So
month.
end of the month,
End of the month.
that's the reason.
CVEC, does that work for you?
We can deal with the end of the month.
Okay.
So, but this broadband authority, right, needs to make a recommendation on what, see, we kind of talk to ourselves, but it is what it is, because the board is the one that's going to have to say, yes, spend X amount of money.
That's right.
So if we're only thinking about broadband, right, and serving the community with internet, is what these 2 gentlemen told us tonight reasonable. And I would say, yeah, I mean, it sounds reasonable to me. I'd like to know, from some other people, right? And
What does that mean? What does
I'd
that
like
mean?
to hear from Comcast, I'd like to hear from.
But that will be in the RFP. They're gonna put out an RFP and all of those people can respond to it. That's what they will be doing.
So, which is how we got here. Could that RFP get out by Friday and be back with responses by the end of this month?
Well, counting dates on the calendar, if we asked lit communities to help us produce the RFP by the 14th, and then we put it out, then we would give them until the 24th, the proposers till the 24th to respond, and then we'd have, that's Monday the 24th, so we would have that week in which to decide who to award contracts to before the end of the month. So that Friday is the 28th. So that'd be before the end of the month. And give us 10 days for the solicitation period. Falling in the middle of all that is the 18th. The Board of Supervisors meet on the 18th, but the period of solicitation won't close until the 24th.
I mean, the only thing the Board of Supervisors has said is that we're willing, or they are, the board is willing to spend up to $500,000 on broadband, right? That's what the board said. And say any more. And right now, we're at like, what, 720 for these 2?
Depending on how many mobile spots you want to buy at 12.5 each. I mean, he suggested 2, but I think Dr. Arnold would probably like 8.
Depending on the areas.
And then we don't know what Sweetbriar wants to do yet with their tower and what that will cost.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
we'll make a recommendation that we go ahead and Lit Communities has given some memo on the 15th that they feel fairly comfortable in getting something ready to go out. Is get it out. If it comes back on the 24th, if we need to call a special meeting, I'm going to go ahead and advertise a special meeting of the Broadband Authority and the Board of Supervisors just to come back and discuss this when it comes back 24 or 48 hours after the county gets it back And then we know more about what kind of money we're looking at. We can convene as a broadband, discuss it, and then we can convene as a board if we need to appropriate additional funding.
I think that works.
I mean, we can just sit here and do the what ifs all night, but
I think
until you get the paper in front of you, I think we have to come back one evening to convene a meeting to discuss this and advertise it as broadband authority and board of supervisors. So we can convene as how necessary to address what problems or needs that we need to do.
Madam Chair, can I propose a joint meeting of both bodies on Tuesday, the 25th of August?
That works for me. Does it work for
It
y'all?
just have to be in the evening, Mr.
Yeah, in the
Rogers.
evening.
7 PM?
Either 6, 7, just
Okay.
sometime after work
Just a
hours.
reminder to you, the 24th is the day of your retreat, that Monday, so it'd be the following Tuesday night.
All right, so that you're saying the 25th?
The 24th, Tuesday, or, I'm sorry, the 25th, you're right, the 25th is a Tuesday evening, 7 PM.
Does that work for everybody?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, works for me. All right,
And so we'll put out the solicitation with Lit Community's help as soon as we can, and bring the proposals that we receive to the joint meeting of the boards on the 25th.
okay, good.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. What else do you need from us?
Nothing else. Make sure.
Gentlemen, Ms. Wood, Mr. Stewart, I can't thank you all enough for coming and spending time with us. Guys on the phone, Lit Communities, thank you all. Appreciate your help.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pleasure meeting you.
Yeah, this is David. I'll call you in the morning.
Very well, thank you.
Hi.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Board members, we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Motion on the floor by Mr. Ayers, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Meeting's adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Sorry for the sloppiness of all that, but as you see, it's changing before our eyes.
Yeah. I don't give
Well, you got a lot of confusion to write about.
There you go. And it, comes in, power again, back to 29, it goes up to outside road, and then we cover this area. This is. Right.
So,
That's where they approved us putting that. So, yeah, and we would actually, if we did this, we would build five roads, there's a reason why that's not in the grant, because. And the same thing up here.
So all kinds of,
There you go. That's it, so that's what that would be. It's gonna be a little further down the line, or this year. So, but, yes.
But